It's a Friday, and I have to talk about this. Every time I do a video that mentions the police, I get accused of being two things. Anti-cop, and I'm a cop lover. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anything I do about cops, if I mention police, people will tell me, Steve, you're a cop lover. The fact that you glorify the cops like that is disgusting. And then 5 minutes later, Steve, why do you hate the cops so much? You understand that you're now part of the problem because you're helping people hate the cops, making cops' jobs harder. And the amazing thing is that when you get accused of being both at opposite ends of the spectrum, you realize that actually you're probably someplace in the middle, which is actually where I am. There are bad cops out there. And I've gotten in trouble for saying, but I think most cops are good. And I get people who say, well, Steve, but all cops are bastards. And then they say, but Steve, all the good cops who don't turn into bad cops are bad by definition, therefore they're all bad. And I'm not going to get into that argument right here. My point simply is this. I put up a video where I talked about how there was a high-speed chase in Hawaii. The police were chasing somebody. And the chase ended when the car being chased crashed. And they charged the police who were doing the chase with a crime, saying that they had been in a collision with the car they're chasing, and therefore they're liable for anything that happens to the people in the car they collided with. And I pointed out that, and this is in the story, that the statute used to say if there was an accident caused by the police, but they changed it to a collision. And by putting the word collision in there, it does slightly modify the meaning of the word to imply that the police car had touched or impacted the car they were chasing. Now, you can debate that issue all you want. But my point was simply that there had been a word change in the statute that allowed for that argument to be made. Okay? Someone commented and said, Steve, this is such a shameful anti-cop video where you are hating on the cops to such an extent that it's actually embarrassing for you because you didn't tell us all kinds of facts. You didn't tell us what the people in the car were accused of doing. You didn't tell us what kind of criminal records those people in the car had. You didn't tell us what the conditions were at the time of the crash. You didn't tell us whether the police were being reckless or negligent in their driving. And the person listed a whole list of things that were not in the video. Do you know what also wasn't in the video? How tall the cops were, or how much they weighed, or what color the car was that they were chasing. Also didn't talk about what the ambient temperature was at the time of the accident. I also didn't talk about the nearest street light to the accident. I also did not talk about the middle names of all the people in the car. I didn't talk about the hospital they were taken to. Do you want me to list for you everything that was not in that video? Because I have news for you. My videos are 10 to 12 minutes long generally. And if I include everything on earth in every video, one video will last forever. I've mentioned before that I went to law school. I also taught law school for 10 years. And there's something that professors try to get law students to do very early on. And I had a couple of professors who were militant about this. A professor would call on somebody to go, Mr. Lehto, what is the case Smith versus Johnson about? Give me the facts of the case. And if I start describing a case and I start going off into the weeds, I've had a professor go, stop. Are those key facts? Do those facts impact the ruling in the case? And if you say yes, how? And if you say no, he goes, why are you telling me them? I want to know what the key facts of the case. So what are the key facts of the case in Hawaii? Well, there was a police chase. It ended in a crash. The prosecutor charged the police saying that they caused the collision and therefore they can be charged with a crime. Their defense attorneys have said, yes, the word in the statute says collision, not accident, therefore they can't be held for that. Does it matter what crime the people in the car being chased were accused of? No. Doesn't. Irrelevant. Irrelevant. Does it matter what color the car was? No. Does it matter the ambient temperature? No. I'm joking about these things. None of these things matter. You can summarize that case to its pertinent facts in 20 seconds. Police chase ends in crash. Police are accused of causing the collision and charged with a crime, therefore. But their attorneys say it wasn't a collision since there's no contact between the cars. That legal issue will be decided by a court. That's it. That's it. That's it. Does it matter what the people in the car were doing? No. Presumably, the police thought they'd committed a crime. Now, you could say, but Steve, what if the police are chasing the car for no reason and the people in the car were innocent? Why are they running? I mean, we can start inventing facts, but I don't like to do that either. So the story I read, I was talking about the facts that are in the story, and the facts in the story laid the case out so clearly that you didn't need more facts. Now, it might have helped just once in a while I'll read a story and I'll ask myself, gee, I wonder this or I wonder that. But it might be that the writer didn't think it was important or the writer didn't know. I don't know. And I've seen police chases on YouTube that routinely end in crashes, sometimes where the car being chased runs into another car, or where a police car does some kind of maneuver on the car they're chasing. And I've seen it where the person in the car just goes off the road wildly and smashes into a tree. Okay? I've seen all of these things. Okay? But the point is that you can summarize that case down to its key facts. And the key facts, as I said, were the ones I just outlined. So by reducing the case to its key facts, am I doing that because I hate the cops? No, I'm doing that because I respect my audience. I don't want to spend an hour and a half here giving you irrelevant, impertinent facts. Perry Mason would be upset. I'm giving you the facts that matter. And by the way, if the facts were not there to actually make the case, then I do some more research and go, okay, something's missing here. And I've encountered one or two cases where I've done stories where I'm like, there is something missing here that we're not getting. I'd like to know what that is. But in this case, why are the cops chasing him? Don't care. I actually don't care. Because if these people were innocent and thought they were being chased by weirdos, I go, okay, that's an interesting angle, but nobody raised it. Nobody raised it. And that's one of the other things that I have to point out here is how many times I've done a story where I say the parties all agree to these facts. And I lay the facts out. And I go, then the court ruled this way. There you go. Talk to you later. And people start hammering away the facts, saying, but what if this? What if that? And now you can ask those questions. What if? Because it might change the facts. And as an intellectual exercise, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But I've seen people comment, and I've had them comment to me and say, Steve, that ruling doesn't make any sense because this could have happened. But it didn't. How do you know it didn't happen? Because nobody mentioned it? If it had happened, somebody would have mentioned it. And so I can't think of any good examples right now, but I've had that happen probably 2 or 3 times a month for however long I've been doing my channel. 2 or 3 times a month, someone will contact me and go, Steve, you did this story where this person did this. But for all we know this. And I'd go, don't you think if that had happened, his attorney would have pointed it out to court? How do we know he didn't? Because if he did, and it would have made a difference, the court would have noticed, the reporters would have noticed. Like, people think that there's a possibility that some wacky random fact that completely changes everything actually did happen and everyone missed it. That's not actually likely, though, is it? Does that seem likely to you? So, getting back to the facts of the car chase, is it possible the people in the car didn't know they were being chased by the cops? and just thought crazy people were chasing him, I think somebody would have raised that point. I would think. And that reminds me of every time I do a civil asset forfeiture case where I talk about the police come by, they encounter you, they encounter your money, they take your money and say, you want your money, you got to sue us to get it back. I assume you know about civil asset forfeiture. Almost every video I do where I mention that, I get 2 emails. And someone will say, Steve, I don't get it. Fifth Amendment, due process, takings clause, just sue them and get your money back. As noted, you can sue them to try to get your money back. The fact that you can sue them to try to get your money back and pay your own attorney fees in the process, we've discussed that to the ends of the earth. That's something we've talked about a million times. But I also get the other one, and I've talked about this, I don't discuss this in every single video, but someone will go, Steve, all you got to do is when you take the money out of the bank, save that little paper receipt. So when the cops go, where'd you get the money from? You go, the bank. And I go, yeah, and they take your money and say, you want your money back, sue us. No, they can't take your money if you got the receipt. Yes, they can. That's why we're so upset. They're going to say one of 2 things, possibly both. You withdrew the money from the bank to go commit a crime with it. Or you committed a crime, got the money, and put it in the bank. Oh, you're also money laundering now. The mere fact that you got a piece of paper showing physically where you got the money from does not show where you got it from earnings-wise. And I've had people get angry at me for saying that. They're like, no. And I'm like, so you're at the side of the road. Cop's got your money in his hands. And he goes, where'd you get this from? And you go, I took it out of the bank. Cop goes, where are you going with it? Going to buy a car. I'm going to keep it. But I got this piece of paper. Oh, I'm sorry. Take your money back. No. Goes, okay, I'll take that as evidence of money laundering. I just, so when you hear me do a story on any given topic and you think I've left something out, ask yourself if what I left out would have changed the story any. And if you really think that's the case, then go look the story up and see if the facts you're imagining that were left out are actually there. And if they aren't, then perhaps your imagination is just a little bit too creative. And interestingly, you came up with some facts that may have changed it, but they're not real. And that's the other thing I get all the time, where people will say, hey, Steve, I saw the story you did, but, for all we know, and then they throw in some wacky fact. And I say, well, where'd that fact come from? Well, for all we know. That's not how life works. I mean, I wish I could make up facts. I wish I could. I really wish I could. I could come out here and make up some fascinating stories. Fascinating stories. They wouldn't be true. And to me, that would lose some of the edge of this channel. Hey, it turns out these stories aren't true. No, the stories have got to be true. That's what makes them interesting. I can't just make stuff up. So again, I don't love cops. I don't hate cops. I try to be kind of neutral and judge each story by the actions of the cops therein. Okay? I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.